Okay, this is going to be a very quick video, guys. I was watching Mythvision yesterday, and Steve Mason came on to talk about the Testimonium Flavianum and Thomas Schmidt's book, as we've talked about before, which tries to revive it and to state that all of it is authentic, which is ridiculous. And Richard Carrier, again, in a long line of people have just completely shredded the testimonium and proved, I think, without a shadow of a doubt, that it's forged. I found something quite interesting today. Now, I have been through this before. I didn't realize that there are actually quite a few more Christians that don't mention the testimonium after Eusebius, who was the likely forger, than I thought. I know John Chrysostom doesn't. He's talking about quite heavily about I think Josephus, but doesn't mention this. There are 6 other quite well-known Christians that fail to reference it as well. Not to mention, of course, all of the people between Josephus, about 215 years, I believe, after Josephus and before Eusebius, who don't mention it either. Irenaeus, Tertullian, Justin Martyr, and so on. They don't mention it. They don't positively identify it, nor do they refer to it in any kind of structural way or allude to this. But here's the thing, okay? So the uses here. So these people use or are mostly said to have used Josephus, even if they don't mention him. Some of them obviously do. There are 6 here. So Lactantius in the 320s, around the time Eusebius is talking. Cyril of Jerusalem in the 340s. Epiphanius of Salamis in the 370s. John Chrysostom, 390s. Sulpicius Severus, again, makes no mention of this, and we've talked about him quite a lot regarding Tacitus. And Orosius, 410s. So these guys are all said to have used Josephus for historical detail and so on. None of them mention the testimonium. This is reasonably suggestive evidence as well that that it wasn't there in their copies, in the copies that they have of Josephus and his Antiquities, which was it's a very important book. Lots of the information in War of the Jews is in Antiquities. Of course, we find mention here of these scenes and stuff in War of the Jews, and the mentions here of Pilate, and actually the 2 adjoining paragraphs in Jewish War, but they don't contain the testimonium. So if Josephus was even talking about this, he added it later. But it is just, again, this is a mess. And I like to say, I like Steve Mason's work. I've read portions of his work on Josephus specifically. And he's great at showing that Josephus is used by the gospel writers, especially Luke here. This fits into my work because I think Josephus was instrumental in building out the gospel stories. And obviously we found out a lot more of this evidence if we incorporate this typology of Titus Flavius Vespasian into the works here. Another interesting thing I found yesterday very quickly is that for the first 300 or so years in the Eastern Roman Empire, the emperors there, of course, continued that title, epithet, like the emperor. Most of them, almost, I think 100% of them, use Flavius in their names. I just wanted to say that. I think it's quite interesting. So they're using this Roman emperor, of course, who has so much to do with early Christianity. Again, members of his family are, they are Christians. The story of his evangelion, missionary activity, mirrors Jesus's so well. Have a look at some of my videos if you're new to this. Love you all, and it was a good video yesterday. I did enjoy it, but fundamentally here, this comes down to and this is it, right? This is the best piece of evidence. I'm going to give it to you all now. Ken Olsen's work takes the actual idioms in Greek of Josephus and compares them to Eusebius and the Testimonium, right? And multiple times, about 7 times, I think 6 or 7 times, in 3 sentences in this Testimonium. The Testimonium comprises 3 sentences, and Steve Mason made this point yesterday. They contain these Eusebian word patterns, if you like, in the Greek, and they're specifically Eusebian. And in Josephus, in all of his works, you don't find them in the way that they appear in the Testimonium. It's done, guys. I think it's finished. And what else he was talking about is entirely speculative. Mason was making a speculative case. When you look at it properly, I was really interested. The first 20 minutes, I was like, oh, hang on a minute, maybe I was wrong all of this time. But then I realized what's actually happening. And he's creating a series of conjectures around Josephus's life, what he was up to and stuff. And just assuming and supposing certain things that may or may not have been true. But we have better evidence for this, and it's the text critical evaluation of Josephus's writing style, his discourse style, and it is out of whack when we look at those that little 25 seconds to read, 3 sentences insertion into Josephus's works. Peace and love.